You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. Let me get some stuff fixed here. It's been a while. So, if I actually released a interview with Anthony Bana a couple days ago. That was the first time we've done a podcast. We've done a show in a long time. So, I'm a little rusty. I just recorded an hour episode of exactly what we're getting ready to talk about now. And there was no audio. So imagine that. I just did an hour of talking and none of it was even recorded. So we're going to try this again because I think it's important. This stuff right here pisses a lot of people off. Okay, this tracing the $250 million, this Minnesota fraud scheme that that was just uncovered, I think, a couple weeks ago. It wasn't uncovered a couple weeks ago, but it's really starting to make headlines because Josh Hawley had Keith Ellison inside the Congress room or inside the oversight hearing. And dude, the look on this guy's face, okay, what a shameless piece of crap Keith Ellison is by allowing people's money to be stolen like this. It pisses me off, and I know it pisses Americans off, and certainly the Minnesota residents, because this was their money. And really, it's all of our money because money's fungible. So, the money stolen by these fraudsters, the taxpayer monies from Minnesota, in a way comes from us too because they get federal funding as well. So it's a huge mess, and this is only the beginning. So I really wanted to get into this because this stuff, it pisses me off too, because the entire system is broken. When you have a system that is forcing its people to pay into, right, by threat of either their livelihood, which is their job, the roof over their head, or you put them in prison if you don't pay them taxes, and then you take that money, and let it go and let it get stolen, or even worse, you actually are facilitating the theft of that money. I'm sorry, folks, but that pisses people off. It's sad, and that's how you end up with revolts amongst the community when they don't want to pay into a system anymore that's losing their money or giving it to people or allowing other people to steal it and live in a life in luxury with it. Like, this is what's happening, so I want to go ahead and go through it. And most of all, I wanted to let you guys know that I started a media outlet called freedomnewsmedia.com. And this is groundbreaking stuff here. Okay, we have a media generating machine that scours through hundreds, even thousands of stories, documents, research articles, charts, everything, CDC documents, every possible piece of information it can find on the internet. It scours through, combines, and then creates an article from. And it is groundbreaking technology we're dealing with. It's groundbreaking. I mean, I can sit and talk about it for an hour because I love it. It's something I've been working on very hard. It is the future of reporting, and it's going to be putting a lot of reporters out of a job because it's absolutely amazing. So it's called freedomnewsmedia.com, and we release articles all the time, and it has what I like to call this Freedom News Verified. And this is how you know when it has this little check mark at the top. This Freedom News Verified, it goes into everything. And so I did a story. We wanted to do a story on this $250 million in Minnesota. Where it went, the story behind it, the timeline, everything about this story. So for those of you that haven't really been keeping up with the politics, because you've been burned out. I get it. Trust me, I was burned out for a while. It's not just you. It's a lot of stuff going on. And, unfortunately, we have this Middle Eastern quagmire that has been taking all the attention of the Trump administration. And to now, it's people are kind of getting people are getting pissed off that the stuff's not getting done that they were told was going to get done. And I'm sorry, folks, but if this administration can't seem to do it, then I don't know any other administration that's going to be able to. And that's what's a little bit depressing. That's, maybe that's just me being pessimistic, but I'm telling you, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that are feeling this way. It's actually quite unfortunate that this administration has been boggled down in Middle Eastern wars, considering it's the exact opposite of what we were told we were going to get. In fact, I personally campaigned for Donald Trump because of the peace that was breaking through in the Middle East and the no new wars campaign, the whole campaign promise of no new wars. So anyways, don't get me started on that. We'll talk about that on a different episode, but I wanted to get into the story because it's trending. Josh Hawley had Keith Ellison in the Oversight Committee absolutely railroading him for allowing this fraud to even take place. And I'm going to show that video to you because Keith Ellison is a piece of crap and he deserves to go to prison for this. But anyways, I want to get into this. Like I said, I just did a whole show on this, but the audio wasn't recorded. So now I have to do it again. So you have to excuse me if my voice starts to go in and out. All right, so let's get into this. So tracing the $250 million, where Minnesota's Feeding Our Future funds went and what's been recovered. So let me scoot this over. So prosecutors say pandemic meal program reimbursements were rerouted to shell companies, restaurants, luxury purchases, and overseas transfers. The recovery has been partial and complex. So Freedom News searched broadly across relevant authoritative sources, compared the evidence, identified uncertainty, and prepared this draft for human editorial review. And I am that human editor. And so I personally read all these articles. This article is a real masterpiece, man. It has everything in it, and I can't wait for you guys to join and to visit freedomnewsmedia.com. You're going to love it. It's going to be your go-to place when you don't want a headline, but you actually want details, data. You want complete stories, and that's exactly what Freedom News Media was set out to do. That's what we wanted out of all this. And it will even tell you, we have it set up to tell you how its overall confidence in the data it has generated and pulled in. And it's giving this article a moderate confidence in the overall article. And that's pretty good considering AI doesn't like giving a full green check mark unless it's like solid written in stone. But I'm telling you, this is a masterpiece. This is great. So I'm going to go ahead. I probably won't read the whole article. We'll just go through a couple things here because like I said, I did this twice. And so we're just going to breeze through it real quick. I want people to know and understand what is going on. $250 million is $250 million. And I think it's a small enough number, believe it or not, it's a small enough number for people to actually comprehend. When you start getting into the billions and trillions, the law of large numbers starts coming in and people just lose. They're desensitized to it because they can't fathom how much money that is. $250 million is a shit ton of money. It is a crap ton of money, and it's low enough to where people can visualize it. And that's why I think this is important to get a hold of, because people need to know that their money's being stolen from them and that it's pissing the taxpayers off. So when the federal prosecutors announced that the Feeding Our Future indictments in September of 2022, they described what they called a, quote, massive scheme that siphoned roughly $250 million in federal child nutrition reimbursements. That figure, $250 million, captured the public's attention, and a single question followed. If that money didn't feed children, where did it go? All right, that's me. That was my question. I wrote that. So the court records, federal press release, and state audits show a common answer. The money was routed through a web of shell companies and nominee sites, then dispersed as administrative fees and payments to restaurants and providers, converted into cash kickbacks and quote-unquote counseling payments, and used to buy luxury vehicles, houses, and travel. Prosecutors have also identified transfers and expenditures that crossed state lines and international borders, making recovery difficult. But the public record does not and cannot yet produce a full dollar for dollar map from each claim to a final purchase. And I doubt it's ever going to be able to because of how dispersed this money is. And ladies and gentlemen, that is on purpose. This money exchanges hands. They purposely do that so that it's untraceable or hard to track, so that people don't go to jail. And this is the problem with our system. It is a broken system. It's been broken. And hopefully, with this Trump administration, they can finally fix this shit so that we can stop wasting our money. And I can stop watching my money go from my paycheck into somebody else's pocket that lives in Somalia. Okay? All right, so the quick verdict, this is what I love about Freedom News Media. It breaks the whole article down to where the first few lines, you could pretty much get a gist of everything that's going on with this thing called quick verdict. So did the $250 million get to feed kids as intended? No. Prosecutors say the claims were fraudulent. Many meal counts and attendance rosters were fabricated. Federal investigators say most of the money was diverted to co-conspirators and personal enrichment, not program meals. And this was from the DOJ press release legislative audit. So was the entire $250 million recovered? No. Courts of prosecutors have seized and sought forfeiture and restitution, but publicly reported recoveries account for a minority of alleged losses. Investigators say some money was spent and some appears to have been moved offshore, complicating recovery. Yep. What did prosecutors say the money was spent on? Prosecutors cite luxury vehicles, residential and commercial real estate purchases in Minnesota, international travel, bribes and kickbacks and payments routed through shell companies and restaurants, the press release and trial exhibit show from the DOJ. So the way this works, the kickbacks and especially like the shell companies, what they do is these NGOs, just to kind of break it down in layman's terms, in the state of Florida, you spend like $150, $200, you can get what you call a 501c3. You can register as a 501c3, and you're essentially now you are considered a nonprofit organization. As a nonprofit organization, you can apply for reimbursements, loans, grants, all kinds of stuff from the federal government that goes to these NGOs. This is money that does not have to be paid back unless it's a loan, and most of the time it's just grants given to these NGOs. They're essentially non-government organizations that are not supposed to be funded by, they're not government programs, but they get money from government funds. I'm telling you, it is a whole sham. The whole system is broken, folks. It's not at all how it was supposed to be. And this is how it all works. They use these shell companies to get kickbacks. This is what they do. They use this 501c3s to do all of it. And now you have 501c4s, which are basically political action committees. It gets complicated, but I just wanted to put it in layman's terms for people to understand how shell companies work. And what these people will do is they will specifically open a 501c3 just for fraud, just so that they can receive fraudulent money from the government. That is its only purpose. And once they get the money, poof, they won't even register the 501c3 the next year for anything. And it'll just go off to the wayside. This is what they do. This makes it hard to track. So here's a snapshot of the evidence. Another thing that Freedom News Media does really well, just gives a quick snapshot. Prosecutors say Feeding Our Future and partners diverted roughly $240 to $250 million from federal child nutrition programs during the COVID pandemic. The stolen funds were routed through shell companies, sham sites, and disguised consulting payments and kickbacks. We already read all this stuff, how the money was spent, yada, yada, yada. Here's another one that's been worrying a lot of people, and I guarantee you, folks, this is real. This is not a lie. This is not a hoax, okay? From the research that I've been doing on this story, yes, some of this money has been diverted back to countries who are in a civil war, and our money is being used to purchase weapons and ammunition for those civil wars. Okay? This, ladies and gentlemen, means that money could be going to terrorist organizations. That's where they're getting these allegations from. And I'm telling you, in 6 months, it will be true. Just going to throw that out there. So Freedom News Media says allegations that proceeds were intentionally routed to terrorist organizations are not substantiated in public court records yet. Some political commentary have made such claims, but the public criminal indictments, the DOJ press releases, and audits do not provide verified evidence tying proceeds to named terrorist groups. These claims require independent, high-standard verification before repetition. This is what I love about freedomnewsmedia.com is if it cannot verify the information through at least one other piece of document or data or information, it'll give this type of warning. Not a warning, but it'll just say limited. So basically it's saying, look, we only found one article or we only found one piece of evidence that supports this, and so it's not going to give it its full confidence where it says high confidence like that. This is what I love about the media. This is what I love about this website. This is awesome. You guys are going to love it, especially my listeners, because this is what we're going to use to start doing our podcast episodes, because it's everything that we need right here. It tells you what you're going to learn from this article, the key takeaways, and then it goes into the actual article itself. So why this matters. So taxpayer funds meant for vulnerable children and families were routed through government programs under emergency pandemic waivers. When programs intended for basic needs are exploited at a scale, at this scale, it degrades public trust, diverts resources from needy people, and exposes weakness in agency oversight. Pretty much all the worst possible things imaginable that you can think of that happens with taxpayer money. It degrades the trust, the public trust. Yeah, people don't like their money going towards, like, bullshit. You force these people to pay into a system, and then you take that money and then you give it to other people so they can buy luxury hotels, restaurants, cars, real estate. Yeah, that's going to people are going to kind of lose trust in that system, especially when you're forcing those people to pay into that system. That shit right there, folks, will cause a revolution in this country if this keeps up. I'm telling you right now. Not only that, but like it says, it diverts resources from the actual thing it's supposed to solve. Why the money was sent to that person to begin with, to feed hungry people. So if the money's not actually going to feed hungry children, then so what's happening to those children? Unless there wasn't any children to begin with. But we know that there's children starving. Is there children starving in this country? I highly doubt it, folks. I really do. So if there's a 501c3 out there that's saying, yeah, we're feeding the starving children, yeah, we're a first world country. We don't really have that. If you maybe want to talk about Somalia, you want to talk about Zimbabwe or, those third world countries that actually have starving children, then yeah. But any 501c3 non-government, non-profit organization that says we're feeding the mouths of hungry children kind of throws up a red flag. We just don't have that shit here. But if we do, that money's not going to that purpose. And so that's a problem. And it diverts the resources to somewhere else. So it's just, dude, I'm telling you, this is bad. This is very, very bad. And yeah, it exposes the weakness in the agency oversight, which I don't think was really a weakness when we get to the Keith Ellison video with Josh Hawley. I don't think this was a weakness at all. I think this was purposeful. They just got caught. Okay? So a clear account of where the money went is essential for accountability and for sensible reforms. Knowing whether funds were spent on consumable goods or parked in traceable assets change how authorities pursue restitution and how lawmakers design guardrails. So this is also that's awesome about Freedom News Media is the timeline. So these feeding our children spikes, this is what's crazy. So back in April of 2020 and 2021, the Feeding Our Future spikes from roughly $3.4 million in 2019 to nearly $200 million in federal reimbursements by 2021. So think about that. In 2 years, it goes from $3.4 million in reimbursements to $200 million. And that doesn't throw up a red flag to anybody? But this was all under the pandemic. You see, this is what they did during the pandemic. I'm telling you, the largest transfer of wealth in human history happened during the COVID pandemic. The amount of money that exchanged hands during the COVID pandemic, people literally can't even fathom with the extent of our human brain capability. The amount of money is unimaginable. The largest in human history happened during the pandemic. And I'm sorry, but that kind of number doesn't throw up a red flag for anybody. Maybe it does. That's why they started the investigation. So January in 2022, search warrants executed and federal investigators began sustained review of Feeding Our Future activity in Minnesota. In September of 2022, U.S. Attorney's Office announces federal changes against dozens of defendants in what prosecutors described as a $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. In June of 2024, Minnesota Office of the Legislative Auditor issues a special review concluding the MDE oversight was inadequate and created opportunities for fraud. So back in 2024, this is when people start coming forward and they're like, "Hey, man, this is no good. That you are opening this up to fraud, and there's most likely opportunities, or there's most likely fraud happening." And then so in March of 2025, federal jury convicts Amy Bach and co-defendant Salim Syed at trial for roles in the Feeding Our Future scheme. These people got big time prison. So judge sentences Amy Bach to 500 months in prison. That is like 40 years. I think we did the math on the show before this. It's like 40 years in prison, folks. So that's deterrence. That's what you need to do to deter these other people from doing it. So media and secondary sources report a large restitution figure attached to the sentence, and DOJ announces additional takedowns and related fraud investigations. Good. Yeah, I bet she was singing like a canary, man. When you talk about 40 years in prison, she'll probably get out in like 10, because that's how our system works. Our justice system is so broken, too. The whole damn system is broken, folks. You know it, and I know it. It's all broken. So in 2025, 2026, ongoing, multiple plea bargains, sentencing hearings, civil forfeiture actions, and state federal audits continue. Asset tracing and partial recoveries proceed while investigations expand into other programs. This is going to be huge. So this is just Minnesota. This, I'm telling you folks, is going to turn into a massive amount of money by the time they get to the bottom of this. And I hope they get to the bottom of it soon, because if Democrats get in power, all this stuff stops. These investigations are going to be stymied. They're going to be slowed down, just like the investigation that Keith Ellison purposely slowed down into this whole matter. So federal prosecutors and trial records say Feeding Our Future and its network submitted fraudulent meal claims and attendance roster to the federal Child and Adult Care Food Program. The summer food service program, managed by the Minnesota Department of Education, DOJ press release states that the organizations claimed tens of millions of meals and received roughly $240 to $250 million in reimbursements. Prosecutors say that instead of buying food and serving children, much of the money was dispersed to co-conspirators, funneled through shell companies, and used to buy luxury cars, homes, commercial real estate, and to pay for international travel and cash kickbacks. Pisses me off, man. So how the scheme worked. So the mechanics the prosecutors described. So prosecutors described a repeatable pattern. Number one, sponsors. A nonprofit or other entity enrolled dozens or hundreds of small site operators and prepared reimbursement claims. Number two, the site submitted daily meal counts and attendance rosters that could not be independently verified. Number three, the sponsor aggregated and submitted those claims to the state, which then reimbursed the sponsors. And then number four, sponsors, organizations, and site owners used shell companies, cash payments, and consulting invoices to move money to people who were not providing eligible services. The DOJ trial materials and indictments identify fabricated rosters, sham sites, shell companies, and disguised kickbacks as core elements of the fraud. This is where that Michael Shirley, I think his name is, that was going out to these leering centers where there was no kids there. There were supposed to be child daycare centers, but there was no children there. There was boards on the windows were covered up, and then the Habibs came out saying, "Oh yeah, just come back and no, never mind, get out of here. We don't want you here." Like, it was super sketchy, folks. Right? Come to find out that these people right here, the people on these videos, the people doing all this fraud, did it right in broad daylight, right in front of our eyes. And the Minnesota authorities didn't do nothing. Tim Walz didn't do nothing. In fact, they were denying it the whole time. They were overseeing all this shit. This is why I'm telling you, Democrats are not going to get this stuff fixed. Because the very people that are supposed to fix it are the very people that allowed it to happen to begin with. I'm sorry, but this is why this is the problem with politics. Is everyone's going to see this happening under the Trump administration, and then what they're going to do is be like, "Well, this is happening during the Trump administration, so I'm going to vote for a Democrat next time." And what happens is they vote for a Democrat. Meanwhile, it was because the Democrats are so lax on on tax dollars because they're a bunch of Marxists, man. Not all Democrats. It's just the leftists, and they're getting worse and worse. The parties, the sane, rational Democrats are long gone, man. That party is completely taken over by leftist Marxists, and the way they feel about tax dollars is like it's pure Marxism, man. And so they are not going to fix this. In fact, it's going to get worse if these people are in charge. They hate the fact that rich people, rich, wealthy people, aren't just giving them their money so that they can give it to whoever they want. That's how they feel about it. And that's how they feel about taxpayer money. And I'm going to show you Keith Ellison's face. I'm going to prove it to you. When you see this guy's face, when he's accused of stealing this, allowing this money to be stolen, you could see it in his face. He is a piece of human excrement. He is garbage. I mean, it pisses me off on a cellular level when I see this guy during this hearing and he's sitting there mocking, sitting there smiling that he lost or purposely gave away $250 million of people's hard-earned money. Pisses me off, man. So the named categories of spending tied prosecutors to stolen funds. We went through all this stuff. You guys can. I'm gonna put this in the podcast description so you guys can read this yourselves. I actually want you guys to go through this whole article. It is so packed with information and data. It's unreal. If you didn't know anything about it, you will know everything by the time you read this article. So examples and public sentencing forfeiture actions, what's on the record, prosecutors in court filings have tied specific defendants to large sums of assets. Early sentencing and plea documents publicized by the DOJ show a preliminary forfeiture order of roughly $5.2 million against feeding our future founder. At least one defendant reported in court and press summaries ordered to pay more than $47 million in restitution. Damn. $47 million in restitution? I mean, you might as well you're never going to see that money because you just took the guy's bread and butter away. He was getting that money from fraud. And if you just busted him for fraud, how do you think he's going to come up with the $47 million? He's not. And so we're never going to see that money. What do you do with $47 million, folks? Like, holy shit. Like, give me a piece of that and I would be happy for the rest of my life. Like, give me a fraction of that. I would pay off my house and I'd be happy for the rest of my life. You never hear from me again. $47 million? It's insane. So multiple lower value forfeitures and restitution orders, multi-million to single million figures associated with other pleas. A number of defendants were also publicly tied to property forfeiture, car seizures, and federal filings and press updates. Good. I hope these people are perp walked. I'm telling you, if this was me, I wish I was an agent perp walking these people down the street. I would actually build a giant crowd, give them all rotten fruit and vegetables to throw at them as we perp walked them to the car. And then I'm going to be in the back with the bell saying, shame, ding, ding, shame. These people, they should be walked through the streets naked and have rotten fruit and vegetables thrown at them by the people. The shame that these people should have that don't have it's unbelievable. These people, I'm telling you, are the worst of the worst. And to them, it's like it's an honorable thing to do. This is the problem with Americans. The way that Somalians and other people, especially Somalians, the way that they see fraud, it's like an honor to them, that they are not shamed at all by this. The way they see it is go get money, go get rich from the dumb rich white people in America. Go find loopholes in their system and then send all that money back. The more money you can scam from the dumb white person in America, the dumb white American, the more honorable you are. It's their mindset. Not all Somalians, but these people, these fraudsters that open these what are they called? Leaning centers? These fake shell companies, these fraudsters. These people are the worst of the worst. They do not think like us. They don't want the American dream. They want to come over here, rip us off for as much money as they can, and go back home. And to them, it's a pastime. It's a sport. And it's the honorable thing to do. So what's been recovered so far? Partial, uneven, and disputed. So public reporting and DOJ material show seizure requests, preliminary forfeiture orders, and restitution orders, but no single authoritative public total that equals the full alleged loss. Multiple press summaries and watchdog trackers have estimated tens of millions recovered, dozens to roughly 60 to 75 million incited is cited in some reporting, while other reporting stresses that only a fraction of the 240 to 250 million alleged loss has been converted into seizable assets. Prosecutors warn that some money was spent on non-durable items or moved offshore, making recovery difficult. And every single one of these offshore banks, every single one of them, should be held accountable. If one dime of this money went into their bank, they should be arrested and charged. I'm telling you, and I think that's what Scott Bessent just announced they were going to do. It's this it's a Treasury announced investigation through the IRS and the Treasury, basically searching and investigating all these banks. If this money even touched one of these offshore banks, they're donezo. And that's exactly how it should be. So it goes through this, why the full recovery is hard. Obviously, the practical problems is consumption and commingling. Money paid for travel, restaurants, cash kickbacks, or basic living expenses is generally gone and not subject to forfeiture. Also, cross-border movement and informal cash chains. Prosecutors say some proceeds were routed internationally and some transfers used methods that make tracing slow and legally complex. So basically saying it's probably going to be years before they get the money back. Oversight failures and the role of relaxed pandemic rules. So in June 2024, a special review by Minnesota's Office of Legislative Auditor found that the Minnesota Department of Education's oversight of Feeding Our Future was inadequate and that the threat of litigation and political pressure slowed corrective action. Federal pandemic waivers loosened normal verification rules, creating conditions that prosecutors say fraudsters exploited. The legislative audit, DOJ statements, and later congressional staff reports documented a pattern of red flags that were not aggressively acted on at that time. And that's because people like Keith Ellison were slowing the investigators down. They were on their trail, man. They were hot on their tail. And people like Keith Ellison slowed them down by getting his so-called people involved and stopping the investigations. That's what they did. That's what he's accused of doing. And that's what Josh Hawley proves in this video I'm going to show you in a minute. So what remains disputed or unverified? This is what's awesome about Freedom News Media. It goes through even the unverified or disputed stuff that's out there. So out of all the articles and all the claims being made through documents and data and press releases, it actually goes through what's disputed or unverified. And so what's being done right now? Obviously nothing. I mean, that's pretty much, we all know that's what happens. Nothing ever comes of this. So I hope and I pray that the Trump administration grabs us by the horns and actually gives people the justice that they deserve. People just want to see justice, man. And when they see people like this get 6 months in probation for stealing $20 million, you know, like, and only $10 million is actually forfeited and returned because they buried the other $10 million in their backyard in a hole. And all they're going to do is after 6 months of probation, they're going to go unbury that shit and go live like kings over in Somalia or wherever. Like, that's what pisses people off. These people should be held accountable, period. Federal prosecutors continue criminal prosecutions, civil forfeitures, Lawmakers have advanced bills to strengthen program integrity and reporting, but we all know lawmakers ain't going to do shit because they don't ever do anything because our system is broken. Our system of laws is broken. Our politics is broken. Everything's broken. Our healthcare system is broken. Our politics is broken. Our justice system is broken. Our education system is broken. Everything is broke. It's freaking broken, man. And we can't even get shit fixed because the very people that are supposed to be fixing it are facilitating it or aren't doing shit about it because they're too scared. They just like to live in lap of luxury. They don't want to shake any trees because they just want to be a senator or they just want to be a congressman that just gets the nice healthy pension and the great health care and the cush job where they don't have to do shit, and most of all, the power and the money. So again, our system is friggin' broken, man. And to be honest, if the Trump administration can't do it, I don't know who can. That's what worries me the most with this administration. And so this is what's great also with Freedom News Media is where it even gives where the evidence is mixed. It goes over all the evidence that it's gathered. It goes over the frequently asked questions and the questions still being investigated. So it says a full audible ledger trying every major claim reimbursement to a final asset expenditure is not in the public record. Where exactly did every major tranche land? Nobody knows. Then it even says that, dude. It's awesome. And then it gives related reading. And then here's our verdict at the end. So the strongest available evidence supports prosecutors say feeding our future and partners diverted roughly 250 million from federal child nutrition programs during the COVID pandemic, and the stolen funds were routed through shell companies. That's it. And this is awesome. It gets all the sources that were reviewed. You could see here, dude, it used the U.S. Department of Justice, Legislative Auditor, the U.S. House Committee on Oversight, the New York Times, Minnesota Reformer. It went through all this stuff, man. So, and it goes through so much more data and puts it all in an article. I'm telling you, you're going to love the new media outlet we started called freedomnewsmedia.com. I think it's the future of media because it's sheer data. That's it. It's not me behind a computer writing a story. It's literally all the data that the internet has to offer. It compiles it, it organizes it, and then creates an article from it. Obviously, I set the parameters. I build the search engine. I build all the logistics behind the scenes, all of the search parameters and queries, all that stuff. I get to set up, but it is as balanced of news as you're going to get because we use everything from every single news source. If it's talked about by a news agency, this system, freedomnewsmedia.com, looks at it and it puts it in perspective. Right, and it puts it into its cache, and it goes through it. So, again, this is the future of media. I think this is going to put a lot of reporters out of business. This is going to put a lot of people out of business. Data researchers, copy editors. I mean, it's almost borderline sad, but at the same time, people are getting high-quality news now. And that matters because there's nothing more dangerous than an uninformed population. Okay, the founders of this country knew how important it was for the people to be informed so that people can make informed decisions. So I wanted to go ahead, as promised, and show you this video of Josh Hawley in this oversight committee with Keith Ellison, this piece of human garbage that was responsible for allowing this $250 million to walk free and go get dispensed to God knows where. Maybe to his family, maybe to some of his friends. Who knows, man? This is what pisses people off. So here is that video. I'm probably not going to play all of it because it's like 7 minutes. But dude, this guy is such an asshole, bro. When you see his face, and I'm going to make sure I stop it so I could show you this guy's face on how much he doesn't care and how big of an asshole and how big of a Marxist this guy is. How he just doesn't care what people's tax dollars are going. Here's Josh Hawley right here with Keith Ellison.
You're the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. Do I have that correct? That's a yes?
Sir, you're aware of my job. You know the answer to that.
You're not going to answer my questions? Are we going to start this way? Are you the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, yes or no?
You know the answer.
Mr. Ellison, you're in my courtroom now.
Did you even hear the guy in the freaking courtroom or there was a guy in there that said, geez. Like, dude, is it really, like, do you come off? It's so, you could tell he's a Democrat, folks. He's a leftist Marxist. This is how they act, man. Like, no respect, no freaking dignity, no nothing. This guy is a piece of trash, bro.
Now, you're under oath, so I suggest that you answer my questions. You the chief law enforcement officer of the state of Minnesota? Yes or no? Let's try another question. Are you familiar with the $9 billion in historic fraud out of your state, including the $250 million in the Feeding Our Future program alone? You familiar with that? Don't turn to the pages in your book to get your potted answers. Are you familiar with it? Yes or no?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
Very familiar, aren't you? Because the people who ran the Feeding Our Futures program came to you in your official office in the state capitol December 11th, 2021. And asked for your help in getting investigators off their backs. They complained to you for upwards of an hour about state investigators going after them, and they begged you to help them, and you agreed to it, amazingly. And we know you did.
That's not
because
true.
It's all caught on tape.
Yeah,
Every single sentence is caught on tape. Here's what you said. Let's take a look.
Obviously, you
said, it's not a question. You said to them, send me the names of all these folks who are investigating them. You said to them, send me their names. And I'll take that list and I'll call the person over at education who is investigating them and say, what's going on? Why am I getting these complaints? Then he went on to say, I already have my team working on this. What day should we get together to discuss it again? You made pledge after pledge to them. You said, we've got to make sure this guy who's investigating them stops it. You said, you have my attention. I'm concerned about this. You said, let's go fight these people, meaning the people who are investigating the fraud. Why'd you do it?
Unbelievable,
Why'd you help
man.
them?
Are you going to let me answer?
Please, we're all ears.
So first of all, you're cherry picking quotes out of there.
Why did you help
I
them?
thought you were going to let me answer.
Why did you
Are you
help
going to let
them?
me answer?
Why did you help
You
them?
let me answer and I'll answer you.
Tell the truth and I'll let you answer.
I will tell the truth.
Good.
Let's do that.
That'd be a nice change. Why'd you help them?
Now see, Mr. Chairman, I didn't come here to be insulted. I came here voluntarily.
You came here for the truth.
See, look, this is what they do. He knows he's busted. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, I hope Keith Ellison goes to prison for this. I think the Trump administration, Josh Hawley, this oversight committee needs to emphasize that what this man did is illegal and he should go to prison for it. If the allegations are true, which I don't know. They're investigating it. But if this guy got kickbacks by stop blocking investigators that were trying to investigate this years ago to try and stop it from happening, to stop people's $250 million of their hard-earned money getting sent overseas and bought and spent in luxury cars and hotels and restaurants, if he prevented that investigation from going forward, then he should be in prison. I'm sorry. But if you do not start putting these people in prison for stuff like this, it's going to keep happening over and over and over again. Clearly, Keith Ellison does not give a flying shit about these people's hard-earned tax dollars. He doesn't have an answer for this. He was caught red-handed. It's on tape. It's on audio. People have come out. Whistleblowers have come out. He's done. Make sure this person pays for what he has done. It is a crime what he's did. It's criminal. So I want to go through. I don't want to play the whole thing. It's like 7 minutes long. Let's see what else they got on here.
Let's have it. Why did you help them? The quotes are here. They're in black and white, and every member of this audience can listen to the recording. It's 54 minutes long. It's all in public. You can Google it right now and listen to it.
And listen to it all.
Why'd you help them?
First of all, I didn't help them.
You did help them.
No, I did not. I certainly didn't.
Look at the smirk on this guy's face, man. This is what pisses me off. The people of Minnesota should be freaking outraged over this dude. I just want to go over I want to go over some statistics here. First, I want to go over some polling. So I did some polling on this. So obviously Americans are worried about where their tax dollars go. We all know that there's fraud happening with our money. We all know that these people are getting kickbacks from people like Keith Ellison, from other politicians. So a March 2026 national survey of 1,000 registered voters found that 87% are concerned about fraud or misuse of taxpayer money in government programs. 87%. That's as much as voter ID. How is it possible that congresspeople, how is it possible that our lawmakers cannot get a bill passed when it comes to oversight of taxpayer money? And the crazy thing is there is oversight. There is oversight of all these programs to make sure that this stuff is not being misused. And somehow it didn't work because it's broken just like everything else. So 50% are very concerned, 37% are somewhat concerned, and 83% believe fraud and misuse of government funds contributes to higher taxes and higher costs for families. That's another thing. The American people are smart, man. 83% know that because this money is being taken for fraud and abuse, that instead of these oversight committees getting to the bottom of it and figuring out where this fraud's going and stopping the fraud, what do? Oh, let's just pass a bill to increase people's taxes. So instead of getting their money back and stopping it from happening, it's just raise their taxes. That's it. And the people know that. They know that's what's happening. They know that that's why their taxes keep going up, is because of fraud and misuse. Not because the schools are getting better, not because the roads and bridges are getting better. You know, with the amount of money that we so-called spend on infrastructure, we should have streets paved with gold. Okay, we spend hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars on infrastructure. And yet we have the crappiest roads and bridges like a friggin' third world country around here, man. So here's another one. Americans have very little confidence that government is careful with tax dollars. That's obvious. Only 6% of Americans say the phrase, quote, careful with taxpayer money describes the federal government very or extremely well. Think about that. 6% of Americans say that the, quote, careful with taxpayer money describes the federal government very or extremely well. I want to know who those 6% of people are. So is there really 6% of people that think that the government is careful with our taxpayer money? That's crazy. Most Americans say it does not describe the federal government well. Of course. Trust in the federal government remains historically low. A Pew Research found in 2024 that only 22% of Americans trust the federal government to do what is right most or all of the time. 59% trust it only some of the time, and 17% say they never trust it. That's actually pretty... I could totally see that. Most Americans believe government is wasteful. So Pew found 56% of Americans describe government as wasteful and inefficient. 42% say government often does a better job than people give credit for. Yeah, I bet 30 of that 42% are government employees. What do people pay in taxes in Minnesota? This is a big one. I wanted to get this data. I wanted to get this information for you guys. So Minnesota collects about $7,860 per resident per year in combined state and local taxes per capita, right? So residents pay state income taxes ranging from 5.3 to 9.8%, plus a state and local sales tax averaging just over 8%, property taxes, and an estate tax, which I think Minnesota is one of the only states that actually charges an estate tax. The Tax Foundation ranks Minnesota's tax system 44th in the nation for competitiveness, making it one of the higher tax states in the country. So think about that. The highest taxed states in the country. They rank 44th, right? And this is where they got to watch their money going. It's $250 million going to fraud. And instead of people like Keith Ellison, who is the head of all of the justice, the head of the police, he's the attorney general, instead of him stopping the fraud, he's stop blocking investigators from stopping the fraud. And he allows the fraud to happen. In fact, allegedly got $10,000 and his family got money and he got campaign money. This is how this stuff works, dude. So here it is. These people are dishing out some of the most taxes in the country just so people like Keith Ellison can give it away to fraudsters. So what could this money have gone to? I want to get into this. So where does Minnesota's education rank? They spend $16.8 billion on K through 12 public education, approximately $19,300 per student. That's insane. So academic quality and school safety ranked for Minnesota 27th overall in the nation, 23rd for educational quality, and 32nd for school safety. So they spend some of the most money per student, but yet have 27th overall in the nation for an education quality and school safety? Huh. So historically, Minnesota was often viewed as a top 10 education state, but in several recent national rankings, it has moved closer to the middle of the pack. Different organizations such as the U.S. News, Wallet Hub, and Education Week use different methodologies, so exact rankings vary. What is their crime rate? Public safety remains an important issue. So in 2026, so Minnesota's crime rate is kind of in the middle of the pack. So here it is. A 2026 statewide poll commissioned by the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce found that many Minnesotans believe they're paying more and getting less. Respondents identified the misuse or management of state funds as a top concern. Minnesota's statewide crime rate, it's actually in the middle. So we don't have to go through that. So Minnesota's violent crime rate is about 28.5% lower than the U.S. average. All right. What could $250 million have bought the state of Minnesota? So using $250 million, here's what they could have got. Public safety, about 2,500 police officers, salaries for 1 year. That's $100,000 per officer. Okay, including benefits, equipment, and training. About 2,000 firefighters a year. Modern equipment, hundreds of police and fire department, education, about 4,000 teachers with a $65,000 salary, thousands of classroom computers, school security improvements across numerous districts, expand special education reading intervention programs, transportation, repair or resurface dozens to hundreds of miles of roads, replace or rehabilitate multiple aging bridges, improve rural highways, housing. They could have built substantially renovated. They could have built or substantially renovated hundreds to over 1,000 affordable housing units with that $250 million. They could have expanded rural healthcare access, increase mental health treatment capacity, and fund addiction treatment programs. They could have did more for veterans, veteran housing initiatives. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Here's the biggest one. With Minnesota's population of roughly 5.8 million people, $250 million works out to about $43 per resident. So for a family of four, that's roughly $172. That's how much it would reduce in taxes. So essentially, think about each family getting $172 extra dollars in their pocket because that $172 they wouldn't have to pay into taxes. So that's not a huge amount of money, but that's a family trip to, I don't know, a steakhouse, steak dinner. That's a family trip to the movies. You know, that's something families could use right now. But instead, people like Keith Ellison and Tim Walz are allowing their tax dollars to go out the freaking window to Somalian fraudsters and God knows where else to buy luxury cars. It's so insane, folks. So I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to share this video. I think this is probably gonna do it for this video. I mainly, this stuff pisses me off, and I just want people to be aware that voting for Democrats is not going to fix this issue, because all this is being done and facilitated by a Democrat, Keith Ellison. And I'm not saying this isn't happening in Republican states. It most certainly is. And I guarantee you, Scott Bessent is going to get to it. Republican states are going to have their fair share of corruption too, man. They're going to have their fair share of waste, fraud, and abuse. I don't care if it's red or blue. This is not a red or blue issue. This is an American issue where 87% of taxpayers, the majority of this country, do not want their money going towards fraud and abuse. But yet they know that's where it's going. Okay? That's a pretty damn high number. I mean, that is right up there with the majority of people wanting voter ID. But yet, somehow, some way, we still manage to have lawmakers that can't get anything passed to stop this stuff from happening. And so Scott Bessent, after this hearing, he went on a tear. And he's starting in a whole initiative. So Secretary Bessent announces initiatives to combat rampant fraud in Minnesota. My mom actually came up to me today. She was like, "Did you know Scott Bessent was gay?" I'm like, I thought everyone knew that. I mean, yeah, the dude is about as gay as they get, man. I don't think he shows it very well, but yeah, he's gay. I mean, what do Democrats have to say about that? You know, that's what pisses Democrats off too. The leftists, they hate Scott Bessent because he's like a financial genius and he's a conservative, right? And all right, well, I guess I don't even know if he's a conservative, but he sure acts like one. I mean, listen, I don't care what he puts in his mouth, man. As long as this dude manages to save us money and he goes after these fraudsters, dude, I could care less. And that's always been my mindset with everybody. I don't care what you do in your spare time. As long as it's not hurting people, I don't care, right? And that's what pisses Democrats off with Scott Bessent, because they can't say anything about it, right? But yet he's on our side. They can't stand it. That's why they turned on Elon Musk too. They all loved Elon when they thought he was a leftist progressive, when they thought he was a Marxist. But no, what billionaire would want anybody coming after their money, trying to bankrupt them, steal their money and give it to other people and give it to their friends and family? Nobody. But that's exactly what Marxists do. You know, it's funny. I'm going to make a meme of Bernie Sanders, all these Marxists, the commie Mondami in New York. I want to put their net worth next to their picture and just show people that this is what socialism can get you. It can get Bernie multi-million dollars, several homes. Mondami, I think, is worth like millions of dollars. You got the Somalian refuge that came to America and then hates and shits on America. What's her name? I can't even remember her name. She I don't know, the one that slept with her brother. Yeah, she's another one worth millions of dollars, but somehow hates America. It pisses me off, man. So, anyways, real quick before we get out of here, so Scott Bessent announces initiatives to combat rampant fraud in Minnesota. So, Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent announced several initiatives to combat rampant government benefits fraud in Minnesota, which has wasted billions of taxpayer dollars. These initiatives are designed to strengthen and safeguard the financial system and protect Minnesota taxpayers. He said, under Democratic Governor Tim Walz, welfare fraud has spiraled out of control. Billions of dollars intended for feeding hungry children, housing disabled seniors, and providing services for children in need were diverted to benefit Somali fraud rings. Yes, see, it's not just me that says it's the Somalians. That's exactly what's happening. Nothing against Somalians. It's just folks, they're not. Most of them don't assimilate here. They don't think like us. Their only mission here is to steal money, to find loopholes in our system and send it back home. So anyways, I wanted to get to this. So the IRS is to launch a fraud task force targeting misuse of funding. So IRS and civil enforcement auditing financial institutions that facilitated the laundering of Minnesota's funds is, in addition to helping support criminal and civil enforcement efforts, the IRS will soon announce the formation of a task force to investigate any fraud and abuse involving pandemic-era tax incentives and misuse of 501c3 tax-exempt status by entities implicated in the Minnesota-based social services fraud schemes. I don't want this to be a Minnesota thing. I hope it goes everywhere. So the FinCEN, the FINCEN, has issued a geographic targeting order to require banks and money transmitters located in Hennepin and Ramsey counties, which include Minneapolis and St. Paul, to report additional information about funds transferred outside of the United States. These businesses will be required to file reports with the FinCEN above certain transactions above $3,000 or more, where the beneficiary is located outside of the United States. Boom. So all these offshore accounts, all these banks are going to have to cooperate and say exactly, hey, if anybody made a transaction over $3,000 and it went outside of the country, we want the names and numbers to those people because we're investigating. I think, dude, I'm telling you, this is going to kick the hornet's nest. It is going to turn over the stone. I think it's going to reveal a level of corruption and fraud that the American people are going to be very hard to handle. The American people are not going to handle this well, man. And I feel like everybody knows that this is what's been happening, but only till now do we finally have people that are there to do the right thing and get to the bottom of this, because the American people are sick and tired of their tax dollars going to bullshit, right? Going to fraud, going to Somalian civil wars and terrorist organizations, to these non-government organizations and 501c3s, to these NGOs like Feed the Future. What the shit, man? Like, we don't have anybody. Is there kids starving in America? If there is, it's extremely rare. That is the dumbest name to give your organization here in America. I mean, it's so obvious. Like, if you have something called that, like something so obvious, it should throw up red flags, right? Like, it's, dude, we don't have those problems here in America. You want to sit there and say Zimbabwe or Nigeria or Somalia where there's starving children, that okay, I get it. Feed the future, feed the kids, donate money here. But in America, I don't see kids starving on the streets. If there's kids starving, it's rare. Okay, this is a first world country. No one's buying that shit, man. So anyways, all right, ladies and gentlemen, definitely check out freedomnewsmedia.com. I'm telling you, we're going to upload all kinds of news stories all the time. It's election season, so we're back doing the podcast. I'll try and release one at least once a week, especially when I find it cool, well, definitely informative stuff like this. But most of all, I want people to know we're not going to do shows just on politics. I always wanted to do a show on sciencey, cool stuff, archaeological digs, historical stuff. I've always wanted to do a podcast on that, and believe it or not, those are some of my best performing shows. People love variety. And I'm going to try and kind of combine it all in one show. And that's what we're going to do here. So just stick in there, hang with me. I'm new to this again. I haven't done one in a while, so I'm a little rusty, man. Check out our interview with Anthony Bana, who's running in Florida's 85th district. I did an interview with him, a very interesting candidate. I like him. Okay, I'll tell you why I like him. because he's the first candidate I've ever seen actually knock on my door with a clipboard. I look outside, he's driving some 2020 Kia SUV, right? Nothing fancy, knocks on it, going door to door, saying, "Hey, can I put a sign in your yard?" I talked to him for about 20, 30 minutes outside on my front porch. And I was like, dude, let's get together a show. So just a couple days ago on Sunday, we recorded an episode. I interviewed him, and it was okay. It was about an hour long interview, which is awesome. There was a lot of follow up questions I didn't ask, and I kind of regret it looking back at the show now. But he did agree to come back on and do another show. So that's what we're going to do. I want to push him a little bit harder on the the property tax reform that's going on here in Florida. People think that this is a property tax abolishment, and it's not. It has everything to do with homestead exemption. And I'll go ahead and get into that maybe the next episode. If I can't get him to come back on, we'll discuss it here on the show because I think it's important for Florida residents to know about this stuff. But if you want to get to know who Anthony Bonta is, if you want to get to know him, watch that episode. It's great. You get a really good one-on-one conversation with Anthony Bonta, and you can definitely get a good feel. The guy's conservative. The guy's a Republican. You know, is he like a Matt Gaetz or a Byron Donalds who's going to go out there and kick the fires or kick the tires and light the fires? I don't think so, but he's definitely a strong voice for Republicans and conservatives when it comes to bills coming through the House. So, yeah, check out that episode. I just released it a couple days ago. Make sure you follow Freedom News Media and Freedom News on YouTube. We're starting our own social media with Freedom News, but I'm going to post all my interviews and podcasts still on the Steven Torriello Show, and Freedom News will headline the shows on the Freedom News outlet, freedomnewsmedia.com. It's going to be your go-to place from here on out to get the latest news. Now, granted, we don't post every single piece of news that's going on for that second, but that's because I have to review everything. I have to go through everything personally, and I just don't feel like posting everything that's going on, but I definitely post the important stuff, what I think's trending, and what I think's cool and wants to go on the platform. So look at the news stack, and if you see a story there, that's because I personally approved it and I wanted it to be there. And you're kind of getting a feel for what the direction I'm going, what I'm thinking, what's going through my mind when it comes to politics. And so, yeah, I can't believe this is the second time I had to do this episode because the first one didn't record audio. So my voice is shot. And you guys know that since February, since February, Carla was diagnosed with cancer. And so I've been really busy dealing with that. And a lot of you guys been asking me where the show's been, where I've been, and that's where I've been since February. It's been a rough road. It has been one of the hardest things I've had to do. I only like talking about it because it gets me all worked up. It's so sad what we've been going through. And, so she's been fighting cancer. For those of you that are following the story, she is in remission, and I'm going to get you guys updated on the GoFundMe and let everybody know what the update is. She's finally in remission. She beat it. And, but it's not over yet. So there's a lot more left to go. The battle continues. And so that's where I'll be. But I promise you, I'm going to try and record an episode once a week and get you guys informed because it is election season and I want people to be informed. And I know people are burned out. I'm burned out because of the Trump administration not really doing everything it said it's going to do, which is a little disappointing that, we didn't get the abolishment of the IRS or the Department of Education or the ATF. We didn't get a lot of the stuff that they said that we would get. And I campaigned on. I campaigned on no freaking new wars, man. I campaigned on the peace in the Middle East, and here we are in another stupid-ass quagmire in the Middle East again, where soldiers are dying. This is not good for Donald Trump at all, man. I'm telling you, people, I have a very good read with people. I'm very good at pattern recognition, and I'm telling you, the people do not like what is going on in the Middle East. Okay, you want to send stealth bombers and drop a Moab down a 4x4 foot hole in the ground? That's awesome. You call Americans, that's what we do. But this, blockades in the Strait of Hormuz, soldiers dying in Jordan. No, man, I'm telling you, people do not like this shit. And I cannot believe the Trump administration of all is back in this quagmire And I feel like his whole administration was sabotaged with this stuff, man. And because we are not getting what we were told we were going to get right now. I know he's got time, but not much time. And I'll talk about that on another episode too. I guess you kind of know how I feel about the whole thing. But listen, we'll talk about it on the next episode. But I love you guys. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.